So many thanks for joining us on Global Morning once again. It's now time for us to look at some other very vital issues. Well, we can't finish talking about the things happening in Nigeria. It keeps unfolding by the day. Reactions and actions, everything put together. But then, what else can we say than working towards the growth and development of our nation? We'll be looking at something very important this morning, and of course, this is in a bid to make sure everything go on smoothly. Partisan politics, all right, and oppositions in Nigeria. What do you think about it? It's going to form the crumbs of our discussion this morning, as I have a former lawmaker right here in the studio and an APC chieftain in the person of Honorable Cletus Obun. It's good to have you join us in the studio this morning, sir.
Thanks for having me once again on Global Morning.
Yes, the issue of defection keeps happening on a daily basis. Don't you think we are closer to a one-party system?
I don't know what a one-party system looks like in this context where you have people, we have 18 political parties and more still applying. And then where you have governors from other political parties just winning election only yesterday, some 72 hours ago, and we are still talking about one-party state. That person can't defect in the next few days because he would have defected to win election. He did not. He stood his ABGA and won his election. I mean, Soludo, the professor. So where is the one-party state? So I do not find it always... you can say that the space is shrinking. In ordinary times, you should also expect that, like all democracies, when you hear about the Tories, the Whigs, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party in the UK, there are more than 10 political parties. In America, there are more than 100 political parties. But what you hear about is the Democrats and the Republicans. So that does not mean there's a two-party state in America. The dominant parties are the ones that are going. So what Nigeria is looking for and going to drifting into is the crystallization of the political space, in which you no longer have a variegated and open field, in which every Dick, Tom, and Harry will just come and say, I also ran election, I was a former presidential candidate, I was a former governorship candidate. It becomes a title in Nigeria. This is exactly what is making people begin to think that we're rather crystallizing and getting our polity into the right frame for democracy that we require. Remember SDP NRC, where there was a condensation of the progressives against the conservatives. There was a condensation and a coalition of those who were welfarist in orientation. And when people start telling you that, most people will tell you today, there's no ideology in Nigeria. Who told you that? We have experimented it from the First Republic up to today. We are having it. All we are looking for is looking for a common ground in which we have all these people aggregating and now concentrating in one camp. And then we now know that the conservatives and the progressives are now coming out, because those who came from the labor and the activist movement of anti-military rule, and those who were always cooperating and collaborating with the military to stay in power, and those who believe in welfarist ideology are here from the First Republic to today. The elements that were now divided into different shades of parties are now coming together. And that aggregation is not going to happen overnight. That's what we are drifting to. So nobody should be afraid that Nigeria is going to drift into. It is not difficult. It's impossible for Nigeria to be a one-party state.
It's difficult. It's not possible.
Yes, it's not impossible. It's clearly difficult, but impossible for Nigeria to be a one-party state.
Okay, but the place of opposition right now, what makes a party or maybe another administration sit up most times is opposition. But we don't seem to be having that kind of opposition with this administration, looking at what is happening in the People's Democratic Party. You know, a lot of people believe, I'm saying this because you are a chieftain of the All Progressive Congress. The PDP was supposed to be the opposition party before ADC and Labour Party, all right? Labour Party following People's Democratic Party, the PDP. But with what is happening in the People's Democratic Party right now, just recently, Lamido has gone to court again to stop the convention. Okay, with all of these things happening, how do you feel as an APC chieftain?
In biblical terms, Jesus will say to you that unless a seed dies, it cannot resurrect and come back as a new plant. And then unless you kill your evil ways, the good parts of you cannot come out. That's what's happening to PDP. PDP has reached its apex. It has reached its apogee, and it has to first deteriorate in order to find itself again. If it's going to find itself as ADC, so be it. But clearly, PDP had in it implanted the seeds of self-destruction. That moment of self-destruction is here. So until PDP, which held us hostage for 16 years, decays and purges itself of those tendencies like impunity, outlawing of democratic principles, act of internal anti-democratic forces, in which court judgments were being arrested, as happened in the case of Wamako in Sokoto State, as it happened in Zamfara at that time, where Justice Salami had to be suspended in order for judgment not to be passed against them, and such other things. Until we get that happen, which is what is happening now, we wouldn't have had the democracy they are looking for. As an APC member, as an APC Foundation member, as a legacy member of the APC, I can assure you that it will not be in the interest of APC not to have opposition. In fact, we will encourage opposition and most, even if it means funding it. We shall do so if it will not amount to imposition. Otherwise, it is in the interest of APC to generate opposition for itself as a way of sitting up and getting a watchdog over it. But don't also forget that in a democracy, beyond political parties, there are the civil society groups, there are the political activists, there are the student union, the unions, there are the spiritual fathers, there are the traditional institutions which come out in every age and epoch. There is always the generation of, even in the era of oligarchies, there was opposition generated for that epoch. And there is always a room for people to get involved in the policy. By human nature, it is impossible not to have people agitate and kick against certain policies and actions of those in governance and those who are in rulership. Even when you have royalty, even when you have this, like I said, if you have monarchies, even in monarchies, there are opposition. There's opposition within monarchies. Look at what's happening in Britain today. What is happening to the royal house? The elder brother says, "Dear brother, we can no longer accommodate you and your excesses." So royalty is being debased, and therefore you have to leave the palace, and it has to go. So within part, there are errors in human nature in which there must be revolt, position for revolt. So I don't see anything impossible about APC getting its opposition on its own day. So I keep warning, let my party not delude itself that it has arrived. On the contrary, it should be looking out for deep internalization of political structures within itself, reward system, accommodation, openness. If you do not do that on its own, APC will implode. PDP is imploding and running into shreds. It's tearing itself into shreds because the very things that they should have taken note of very early, they did not. So that's a lesson for APC. If a slave does not look at how his fellow slave is being buried alive, you should know that the next one will be the one. So if we do not take our time and look at what is happening to PDP, we are going to be the next victims of overconfidence.
You talked about the People's Democratic Party, the PDP's time in office. And you were talking about the fact that a lot of court cases, things about the judiciary not being independent and all of that. And some of the things you talked about is the same thing the All Progressive Congress is being accused of today, especially the issue of judiciary not having being independent. Let me use the word, because elections have been won from the court, contrary to how it used to be in Nigeria. And like you said, civil society organizations have been crying out, all right, in the cases of the judiciary not being independent, just like you allegedly said happened during the People's Democratic Party. What would you have to say about that as a chieftain of the All Progressive Congress?
Let me tell you, as ACN, when we took off as opposition to PDP, remember, about 5 of our governors came out of court. Peter Obi of Abga in Anambra State came out of court, was a product of the courts. Adams Oshomole was a product of the court after 3 years of legal struggle. Don't forget Osun State. And like I told you, it was the shift into northwestern Nigeria that brought the arrest, court judgments being arrested. I cited Wamako for you, where he was a candidate of ANPP, moved into PDP to run, and they said you can't be a candidate of 2 political parties within the same election cycle. And when the judgment was about to be passed, the judge was suspended. What can be more crude than that? And when you now juxtapose that with what is happening now, the expansion of our law on account of currency, that is contemporaneity. In other words, because of contemporary events, because of amendments to our laws, judgments can no longer be the same. Remember the Amechi case, which the Supreme Court had to even review itself to say that it is parties that run election, not individuals. In the Amechi case, it was the individual that was affected. So because of that, he benefited. But thereafter, the Supreme Court revised itself and reviewed its own judgment and said it is parties that are on the ballot, and therefore it is parties that run election and not individuals. Remember also that before now, like I cited the case of Adams Oshomole, you could run a court case for 3 years. It happened to Peter Obi for 2 years. Adams Oshomole for 3 years. The case of Aregbesola, 2 years. And on and on and on.
In court?
Yes, but the National Assembly had to review those matters it's 2013. At about 2013 or thereabout, it had to review those cases and said it must be time barred. So you can't go for, the trial court must do it for 180 days. The appeal must be 90 days. And on, Supreme Court must be this. So it was now short-timed in a manner that you don't have to, like they say in court, in legal parlance, there must be an end to litigation. So because of that amendment, you can no longer try cases of 2001 in 2025, because now you have to limit your time, call your witnesses within time and all that. Because of danger and the imperilment of witnesses, now you have to now start putting our witnesses as in figures or in letters, in alphabets, in order to conceal them, to protect witnesses. Things like that didn't used to happen in the past. So when you talk about the judiciary not being free, I don't know how under APC, which has done everything to free, for example, judicial independence was fostered when it was not possible for judges to have their medicals, to have their allowances, and by the Judicial Service Commission. It regulates itself. So nobody again from the executive or from the parliament, beyond making of laws, can go and interfere in how courts are run, how transfers are made about judges, how judgments are made, and things like that. The NJC has been suspending judges, has been carrying ordinary actions and dropping the axe and the gavel at judges at regular times. How is APC has gone to influence judges, how they have whittled down their powers, I cannot see, unless you cite examples for me, how the judiciary is no longer independent. If anything else, this is the best period for the judiciary, because now you find judicial welfare now in place so that judges can now afford it. What I rather would like to see is reforms within the judiciary itself, that judges are still using longhand to record witnesses in courts. Is something that should be avoided. That is a cake. It's anachronistic. Those are things that we should be talking about to free our judiciary, so our judges don't get dying too early, immediately after leaving judgment. Because you listen to 10 witnesses in a case and you are doing longhand to record them, we should have a better means of doing that. We should be passing judgment. Now you can see judgment now come out faster. You can put them on the internet. You can upload the judgment, so that there's nothing like waiting for 10 days for the judge to go and write and do corrections, and then they are typing them. You no longer have that. There's an improvement. So if you find that, how do the judges, how do the judiciary become hamstrung by the executive or by the legislature? So also you people will jump up and tell you that the parliament is also now rubber stamp. How they rubber stamp when now you can find nominations by the president turned down in a house that is dominated by the same political party? And then when that happens, you say political witch hunt. If a party within itself can weed out its own members, is that not to show that there is transparency? Because a party member is being brought to be appointed, a party member sitting in parliament said, no, this one cannot go because we have this against him. That shows autonomy. That shows independence of the arms of government. Rather than compliment that, rather than commend it, we turn around to criminalize it. We turn around to kill morale of parliamentarians, kill morale of judges, and then begin to look for angels from the sky. No angel is going to come and rule Nigeria, and we're not going to ask for second colonization. We cannot be recolonized.
Okay, let's get back to the issue of opposition. If opposition is not strong anymore, and we have civil society organizations, like you said, let's look at the issue of accountability and transparency as it has to do with governance now. We've had statements coming from the World Bank like only 44% of social investments get to the Nigerian people. Then we've had issue of money is going to, like this morning on one of the papers, Sanwo-Olu, governor of Lagos State, said, well, this administration has given governors the highest fund so far. It's on the papers. But majority of these governors are APC governors. What can you say about the issue of transparency and accountability? Because the common sense will tell us that as a people who have conscience, you don't even need to be followed before you do the right thing. Do we have that in place with the APC governors? Because as it is right now, they have majority of the governors in Nigeria due to the defections that we are having and still going on.
Now, let me place what the context is so that you don't make the error of saying that those who defected are APC governors just by nomenclature. Labeling is not enough. Context and content is important.
Okay.
Those who won election as APC governors should be judged beyond and above those who defected, because their orientation, they need to be politically quarantined so that they get into the reoriented and reintegrated into the progressive movement which they have come to join. Until that happens, you cannot judge them yet as progressive governors. We are still watching them and trying to introduce them and induct them and then give them some retreats so that they come and get acquainted with progressive politics. Until that happens, you cannot judge them so. Then to the original APC members and governors, you cannot judge a governor of Borno State, for example, Professor Zulu, along the same line as you judge, for example, Diri of Bayelsa, who just joined yesterday. You judge him separately first as a governor, as a person. You cannot also be judging the governor of Cross River State, who in his first address to the state made progressive statements like all pregnant women are to be treated in government hospitals free of charge. WAEC fee is to be paid for every child in Cross River State, whether you are from Cross River or not. That was his first address to Cross River people, and his mantra is people first. That's Cross River State government. That's progressivism. That's a welfarist-oriented individual first before he joined the party. So it is his nature to do so. Like you said, we are people of conscience. So if you take that barometer to measure as a template for progressive politics, and you look at a Zulum, you look at some other governors in Okweboro just came in. Look at what he's doing with Edo State. Barely a year in office.
So he has been conscientized already?
He is already a progressive person, even by nature. Go to Edo State. Before he ever joined politics, he was a community person. His community development strides is what even brought him into politics, first into the Senate, and then now as governor. That is the nature of the man. I'm just naming them for you. I've named Prince Otu of Cross River. I've named Zulum of Borno State. I've named for you Okwebolo, the one who just came into office now. This is his first time as governor. Look at their trajectory, and then you judge them. Then when you now make a man who just joined in now, for example, the man in Delta State just joined, the man in Bayelsa has just joined, a few others are still joining, Akwa Ibom just joined. If it's in nature to be good, there is no way that party is going to make him a bad person. parties do not define men. It is the conscience and the content of the man that you should be judging first, and that is what people see before they go voting for you. With our digitalization of voting patterns, you should now know that there's less and less. What we are now crying about is vote buying and voter apathy. Those are the twin problems we are now facing. No longer ballot box snatching. We've passed that stage now because we have improved on our electoral processes. When Nigerians don't see how our polity is improving by the day, they don't seem to share in the progress we are making as a nation in our democratic processes and in our democratic growth as a nation. People don't want to believe that before today, ballot papers can be snatched and an entire election is thumb printing. It's thumb printed by one person, and there's nothing you can do about it. Today, you cannot get that. So people who are making progress are those who by nature, people have identified, the community have identified, citizens have identified, voters have identified as those who they can resonate with and they can relate with, those who can represent their interests and those who can consummate the intention and objective, not only of their party, but of the community. So in that context, you cannot say that accountability is also a citizenship responsibility. It's not enough to be expecting the police, EFCC, ICPC, NFIU to go and be chasing governors and everybody. Citizens also can monitor that. Only recently, I have heard people shouting, it was the president of Nigeria that had to go to court to ask for local government autonomy. Even the local government themselves, including Oge, don't want the autonomy. It was Jonathan, it was Buhari that was asking for autonomy for the legislature. The legislature themselves thrice voted against themselves. State legislatures say that they don't want autonomy. You can imagine the twisted logic in that. How do you access the people to make them get the kind of quality and type of leadership that they want at that level? Where you can now be asking for where is the money coming from the federal government. All right. The people to do that will come from the states. The people to do that will come from the streets. The people that will come from the unions. The student union activism is dying. Somebody wants to be a student union leader, he goes first to the politician to seek blessing and get money to go and contest. How do you check that kind of person?
Our time is running out. Our time is up already. I wish we could have time to talk about this. I don't know. You will come again because we need to talk about this, because we need to do a holistic assessment of the APC governors as we keep waiting for those that need to be indoctrinated and, of course, to do the right
quarantine, political quarantine.
Call it political quarantine. All right. Many thanks for joining us on Global Morning today to talk politics. Well, as we wait for the political quarantine of those defecting from other parties to the All Progressive Congress, let's keep our fingers crossed to see if they will work based on their conscience or they want people to carry cane and placard to follow them. But notwithstanding, it is not all APC governors that are doing what they are supposed to do, as in being accountable and transparent. All of this will be coming up in our subsequent programs as we do a holistic assessment of the All Progressive Congress officials. Let's go on a quick break. After this break, we will return.